Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 41 of the next generation of superstars, and we're very fortunate and grateful to have Madeline Andelbradt, who is a high jumper and competing in women's track and field at the University of Iowa, and she's originally from Lisle, Illinois. So, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Grant.
Absolutely, and tell us a little bit how you found your love and passion, for track and field growing up.
So, originally growing up, I was actually a softball player, and in middle school, I had a friend who was really into running, and she kind of introduced me. And so I started off as more of like a distance runner, and she kind of forced me into the sport of track and field, and I got to test everything out. I found high jump, and I immediately fell in love with it. I just thought it was something that was very unique compared to all the other events, and I thought it was really interesting, and I kind of just stuck to it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And kind of more of just the support you've received from your family and friends and everyone
Mhm.
that's kind of just been part of your journey, growing up and when you started to take your career more seriously. What was that support like?
Everyone was so supportive of me. I feel like my parents, my brother, and his wife were definitely the most supportive, and all my friends along the way on my team and from my high school, all my coaches were very supportive of me, trying to get me out there, talk to coaches, reach out for me. There was just a lot of support all around, and everyone was very helpful.
That's awesome. And it's always nice to have such a good support system, people that are
Hmm.
there to really help and kind of give you tips and advice when needed, but just really
Yeah.
support you in following your passions and dreams. And what about just the
Hmm.
fans that you've kind of engaged with, whether it's been, online on social media or even offline at your track meets? How have you kind of, best engaged with those fans?
Basically, the way I do is just try and keep like a positive image. Always try and stay positive, be a good sport no matter what, no matter how competition went. Just kind of have interactions and make sure they leave a positive mark on people.
I love it. That's awesome.
Hmm.
And have you noticed that, with NIL being in place, that there's been more engaging fans, or how have you kind of noticed the fan engagement, as you've progressed, through your career?
I definitely think there's more fan engagement. I mean, I obviously wasn't competing when there was not NIL, but I
Right.
think compared to what other athletes had told me before it happened, that there's definitely more fan engagement now versus a few years ago.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think another important thing is the influence from coaches and mentors, and what has that been like for you? If there's been anyone in particular that's been a good coach or mentor, and really helped give you more direction in how you're competing and improving your game.
Yeah, I had a really amazing high school coach who really drove me to be my best, and I think she helped me a lot. But it was a really interesting case for me when I committed to Iowa. I committed with a coach who left the program. So, the start of my freshman year, for the first probably 5 or so months, we did not have a coach. But once one was hired, he's been amazing, so supportive, and I really love that everything
That's
he's
awesome.
that he's done.
That's awesome. And it's always nice to have, the coaching staff or just people that can be like a mentor,
Hmm.
as you really take your, you're a student athlete and there's a lot of you have to handle
Yeah.
and juggle. So you want to make sure that you can have the great support, and leadership for people that can be, in that mentor position. What would you say, even at the high school level, now you're transitioning into the collegiate level of track and field? What's your favorite part that you've experienced, just being a student athlete?
I think that having a team just to provide that community sense, everyone is always there for you no matter what, and they're going through the same thing that you're going through. So they understand, especially the older athletes, they're always there to help you no matter what. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people don't have that when they first come to college. They're still trying to find their group, but it's like a built in friend group that you have and built in mentors.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll kind of talk about more about just that relationship and bond you've started to form with teammates on the track and field team, and just more people that are there to support you. What has that kind of been like for you so far?
Well, I think like our high jump group is really close knit that we have at the University of Iowa because we were kind of getting tossed around from group to group when we didn't have a coach at first, so it kind of made us all closer. And then when we finally did get a coach, it was more like we finally became a family.
I love it. That's awesome. It's awesome, and it's good to always have that camaraderie and really just be able to have that, like you said, close knit group.
Hmm.
Has there been any memorable moment? I know you're now transitioning into the collegiate career of things. Has there been any memorable moment that you look back on and like to reminisce, in your career so far and being a high jumper, track and field athlete?
Yeah. I was injured a lot my first season. I was in a boot a couple times, but there was one meet where we all got to compete in. It was like our first meet competing the whole high jump squad, and I think it was just really memorable to be warming up with all of them and just doing all the motions that we do at practice, and it finally becoming a reality to actually do it at a meet.
That's incredible. Yeah, and it's always nice to
Hmm.
be able to look at your accomplishments and awards and things that you've done, and look back on that and know that you can be grateful for that as you continue to
Yeah.
progress in your career. I think another important aspect is just obviously you have to handle the training and the physical aspect of
Hmm.
things, but the mental health that's something that
Yeah.
needs to be talked about more in just sports in general. What do you do personally to really focus on your mental health as a student athlete?
I think it's something a lot of athletes are afraid to do, but it's okay to take a day off, like every once in a while. Our coaches are very generous with giving us like academic days or a mental health day if you really need it. And I think a lot of people don't take advantage of those because they're afraid to miss something, they're afraid to get out of shape. But I thought it was very important, maybe like once a month, to take a mental health day and just relax that day.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's so crucial. Even if besides sports, right? Even outside of sports, to be able to really, take time for yourself, focus on what you
Hmm.
need to do for yourself that can help you just be back in action and even stronger than before. What about on the other side of things? What does the routine look like, and what is it going to look like as you go into Iowa now for just the training routine, and how are you going to be able to
Hmm.
manage that with academics and social life? What does that routine kind of look like for track and field at Iowa?
Yeah, so our practices were more midday, later afternoon. So mine was normally classes in the morning. I do maybe one or two classes. Then I go to practice. We'd practice for 2 or 3 hours, and then we'd have a lift right after most days. So there's about like 4 hours where we're like actively working out, like give or take some days. And then I'd also have classes after that, which is a lot to manage, but like our support staff does a great job helping us out if we need tutors or anything for academics.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's always nice, like you said, to have that support. And so you're
Hmm.
going into your second year of track and field at Iowa. Is that correct?
Yes.
So being in there at the collegiate level with NIL, it's been almost 2 years old now. What does that look like for you when you've been able to experience just the first, initial stage of
Hmm.
NIL? How has that been able to help you with your own personal brand and be able to give
Yeah.
back to the community and the youth? What
Hmm.
does that do for you with your own personal brand?
I think it just helps to like grow my like fan base and just have different people to talk to. Like working with you guys has been amazing. And it's interesting to see what brands reach out to you, if you reach out to a brand, if they'll respond or not. And like there are certain brands that still don't do NIL, which is interesting. A lot of like
Right.
workout clothing still doesn't, but I'm hoping like some of them will get into that soon.
Yeah, and has there been any, I always like to ask this, has there been any specific brands that you really care about that you would love to partner with, even after your career or anything that really stands out to you that you want to partner with?
Really, any brand that helps like to promote mental health in athletes, I think is really important. I know a lot of people work with like sports drinks and things like that, but I'd prefer something along the mental side.
I love that. That's awesome. And any brands listening in our audience, if they are promoting mental health, please partner with Madeline as
Yeah.
she would be awesome for your brand. Going a little bit further in NIL, how would you plan on, or if you have already, on giving back to the community? Being from Illinois, or even just helping your community out in Iowa, or just impacting the
Mhm.
kids. Do you have any plans in the future, or anything that you would like to do to make that huge impact on the community?
Something that I would like to do is talk more about mental health in sports because I feel like it's kind of looked over in a lot of senses, and a lot of athletes are afraid to speak up about it. But I feel like, especially in your first year, transitioning from high school athletics to collegiate athletics is a very big difference, and a lot of people do struggle with it. And I think it's just important to discuss like things that I've been through and things that other athletes have probably been through as well. Just like set awareness for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of more in going further into mental health, there's so much new technology, being, created and now kind of merged into sports. How do you think sports technology is going to help or aid, within mental health and especially student athletes right now?
I think it's all really going to be helpful and beneficial because there's a lot of like even technology in the training room or in the weight room that we did not have in high school that's helping so much with injury prevention. I think
Yep.
an athlete who is injured definitely struggles a little bit more than who's not one who's healthy because they're not with their team all the time and can't. It's almost the you measure yourself on what you can do, and those athletes who are
Right.
injured who can't do as much as their teammates, they struggle a lot with that. So I think it's going to be very
Yep.
beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we kind of wrap up. You've given great advice so far, Madeline. But we always wrap up every episode with this last question. What would three pieces of advice that you would give to the next generation or the youth that looks up to you as a student athlete in women's track and field? What would those three pieces of advice be?
I think the first one is like don't be afraid to put yourself out there. If like you're a high school athlete who you're unsure if you want to compete, I think it's worth it to go talk to coaches. You can also get help with recruiting. I think that's very important, working with a recruiter. Um, Another piece of advice would definitely be don't be afraid to speak up to your coaches if you're hurting during a workout or anything, because it's not worth risking injury over any of that. And then third, like it's okay to take a mental health day. It's okay to take an off day. You have to focus on you first. You come first
Yep.
compared to sports, but sports are also a very important part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to recap everything you said, Madeline, you said number one, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, even going to seek help and guidance. And you said number two, to speak up to your coaches, really have that, back and forth communication. And you said number three, it's okay to take that day off or that mental health break to really regroup and come back, better than before. So that's all great pieces of advice. We appreciate you for being on our show. Everyone in the audience, please follow Madeline all over social media and stay tuned to her upcoming track season this year. And make sure to stay tuned for her release of her very first digital training card on Virtual Stacks, our partner platform. Thank you again, Madeline Andelbradt, who plays or competes in track and field at University of Iowa. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much.